Hello, everyone. Thanks for attending. Welcome to the Open Metadata Community Meetup. We're going to get started here in just a second. We'll allow some people to come in. Thanks for attending. If you could let me know where you are calling in from, we can get started here. Let me know, make sure that you can hear me, you can see my screen, and we'll get started here in just a couple seconds. Excellent. Yes, thanks everyone. Audio and video. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, it sounds like people can hear me. We should be ready to go here, right? So let's get started. Again, welcome to the Open Metadata Community Meetup here for August 2025. As we are, getting back to school here in the US, there's a lot of learnings here in the next hour that I'm excited to share for you all, but a pretty full schedule. So let's jump straight into today's agenda. As usual, if this is your first Open Metadata Meetup, we run through some community metrics. Wanted to share how I'm seeing Open Metadata grow, and then give some opportunities to get some updates since our previous meetup. We have a community spotlight. Today, Aimen Denche will be showing how he utilizes Open Metadata in some exciting ways for NW. So looking forward to that. After that, since the last meetup, Open Metadata 1.9 has come out. So there's a couple different topics that we'll be talking about to finish out this meetup, including data contracts and data asset rules, and some other Open Metadata 1.9 improvements. At the end, we'll be fielding questions, but feel free throughout the webinar to utilize that chat function that many of you have so far, and ask questions at any time, and we can make sure to get those addressed. So here are some metrics on the Open Metadata community since our last meetup. There's two that I wanted to call out. The number of open source contributors continues to grow. It's been great to see since our last meetup, there's been 18 new contributors to our project. Back in June, just 2 meetups ago, this number was 6, right? So to see that 3x in 2 months was a wonderful sight. Another thing that I wanted to call out is our Slack community members. You can sign up and join our Slack at slack.open-metadata.org. It's a great place to make sure that your open metadata environment is up and running and is as performant as possible. We just had a milestone there of passing over 10,000 community members in our Slack. So to celebrate that 10,000 community members, we definitely wanted to thank you all. I think that this project would not be possible without the support that we both give and receive in that Slack. It's been great to see how hungry people are to learn more about their data through open metadata, and that's really apparent in our Slack. So I appreciate all of the people on there, and then your activity and your hunger to understand more about your internal data environments through open metadata. So to celebrate, if anyone would like to share their experiences on social media about open metadata, about how it's been helping them, or about how that Slack community has been helping them, please share and let me know, and we can send you a gift. Right. So I think this is a milestone that we really want to, that is gift worthy. Right. So I really appreciate all the support and all of the commitment to our Slack. So I wanted to just call that out and celebrate it. And we'll see some more in some later slides that community is in pretty great health. So here are some more community metrics about the number of PRs that have been merged and the amount of Slack posts. Here you can see the posts in that Slack that I was just talking about week over week since the last meetup. But here in this next slide, if we consider since the last meetup in July as a whole month, not week over week, it was the best month ever for our Open Metadata Slack in terms of number of posts. Right, so you can see that not only are we reaching those milestones in terms of number of members, not only is it larger than ever, but it's more active than ever. So thank you all for your questions. Thank you all for your support on that in that Slack community. As I mentioned, there is a large growth in the number of contributors to Open Metadata as well. Here are some of the community contributors since our last meetup. So really appreciate all of the work that is going into building out Open Metadata as we get into Open Metadata 1.9 and beyond. So to be able to showcase how he's using open metadata, we have Aimen Denche here that will be talking about how he's utilizing it in some really novel and interesting ways that I've had the pleasure of being able to see and definitely think that they were worth sharing. So I'm excited to see and show you all how he is using open metadata.
Well, thanks, Nick. Hello, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. I'm going to start quickly by introducing myself. So I'm Aimen Denche. I'm a data engineer and governance at NW, which is a French leader in renewable energy and electric mobility. What we do actually is we build charging stations and smart energy solutions that can help to retrieve or actually that can help to drive the transition to, I would say, cleaner power. Also, a huge shout out to the entire Open Metadata and Collide team for all of the efforts and the incredible hard work actually they have put into the soul. I started working with Open Metadata, I would say 2 years from now, almost like 2 years. Also, it was, if I do remember, it was like at 1.2.0, and I've did like integrated for multiple sectors such as banking, finance, and energy. And yeah, without further ado, let's jump right in. So let me just do this here. So actually, in the world of data, governance is critical for trust and decision making. And usually, I would say companies, organization teams do struggle from these daily challenges, these daily governance challenges. First of all, we have the manual lineage tracking, where generally I would say the teams they do spend hours to try to understand their data, where it's coming from and where it's going to. Second of all, we have scattered ownership, which means like sometimes we don't really have a single source truth of, I would say, who owns what. The outdated descriptions and tags that leads generally to confusion and inconsistent usage. The repetitive and redundant tasks, such as I would say like people or actually teams, they do struggle from doing the task each day because like in long term, it will be really tiring and exhausting. And finally, the slow and unreliable insights, which delays to decision making and also make the data not trusted. And for that, we're gonna pretty much ask the simple question is how open metadata actually is gonna help us to solve these problems and these struggles. Well, first of all, as you know, open metadata is a centralized metadata catalog, which means we have a single source truth of all of our ecosystem. For most of the connectors, if I'm not mistaken, we have like more than 85 connectors for APIs, databases, dashboards, pipelines, storage, etc. Second of all, we have the built-in lineage and relationship, which means we have end-to-end visibility to all of our ecosystem or sources. Third of all, we have the automation-ready APIs, which means we can do pretty much everything with API and we can integrate it with a lot of tools or orchestration tools to try to accelerate also the governance. We have also governance at scale. The good parts actually in open metadata is we can enrich the data by adding descriptions, adding tags, owners, assign owners of the data, or pretty much also let's say add certifications to try to classify our data. So let's take an example. If our data is, we have like pretty much three classifications: gold, silver, and bronze. So bronze, it's mostly for the raw data. Silver, pretty much it's going to be for the pre-processed data, and the gold, which is going to be ready to be shipped to business owners for analytics, for example. And finally, the ecosystem integration, as I was saying, pretty much I would say like more than 80% of the most used tools in the IT field, they are already available in open metadata. And for that, we're going to take here a simple example of a workflow for automating governance. And for our use case here, we have four connectors, as you can see. So we have Kafka, we have PostgreSQL as a database, BigQuery, as for our case, it's the warehouse, and the Power BI, which is going to be for the data visualization. Um, Pretty much cool stuff about open metadata is we have a lot of agents. So the common one is going to be the metadata agent, which is going to allow us to ingest our data from our different sources. But there is like others such as lineage agent or usage profiler, etc. So we have like a lot of good functionalities. But in our use case here, we're going to focus mainly on the ingestion. So what will happen often is once we have we have implemented open metadata in our ecosystem or our infrastructure, the first thing is we're going to add our metadata from these across systems. And then the good part is there is the metadata agent, which is going to run, we're going to, for example, parameter it to, will be run, I would say, each day at midnight. So if we say tomorrow we have a new topic or a table or a dashboard added to our connectors, it will be shipped and automatically integrated to open metadata. This is thanks to Airflow, the orchestrator. But what if actually we can spice these things up here for actually being part of the automation? And first of all, as a governance result, we will have faster insights. We will no longer struggle with repetitive tasks. Also, we're gonna have a trusted governance since everything is gonna come from source single of truth, and also scalable workflows. And for that, I'm gonna pretty much use here my Airflow. And here we have like the term DAG. DAG is pretty much just a Python script that we can schedule it, for example, to run every day. Let's say like at 2 a.m., for example, in the morning. The good part with Airflow that we have like the versioning, we can see the logs, we can schedule it, we have tasks, so we have like bunch of cool stuff. And let's take, for example, a scenario. Let's imagine in our warehouse or BigQuery, for example, in my case I was talking about, we have 30 tables. This is going to be easy for teams like to just add or assign owners or add descriptions, add lineage, etc., or the tags, the classification, certifications, etc. But what if we have like 10,000 or 15,000 tables? At this time, like it's going to be pretty much impossible to do this. The good part with Airflow is if you can use some logic, which I'm going to show you, for example, let's take a DAG here, which is this one, open metadata assign owners by service. What you can do is simply by simple logic, when you're going to trigger your DAG or your custom DAG, actually, you have here two values, which is going to be the service and the team owner. So the services, if I will go here in my open metadata, as you can see here, I have multiple connectors, but I'm pretty sure that the Kafka Connect here, for example, service, it's called Kafka Connect, or the second one, it's called Kafka Connect Iceberg. So if I will come back here to services and just specify it, and therefore the team owner, it's going to be, in my case, data and products. This team, it was already created in open metadata, so the API, it's already known, it's already have a knowledge about this. If I'm going to trigger this DAG, actually, what's going to happen in open metadata is, let me go back to this service, go to my 722 pipelines, and you can see that all of my owners in a blink of an eye were patched. If I'm going to go to the final one, I would say here, or like the last page, we can find it like they are all patched. And it's going to be pretty much the same scenario. The good part also is, since we do have logs here, so as you can see, it's going to tell you that all of your pipelines here were patched, and you can also, for example, do pretty much just an output just to say that the 72 pipelines were actually patched. As you can see here, I have 72. And the good part is tomorrow, let's say we have like another pipeline added in our connector. The metadata agent, we're going to ship it, for example, at midnight. And let us, for example, take this tag. It was scheduled at 2 a.m. in the morning. So each table or each topic or any data assets that will actually be added in open metadata, the Airflow tag will automatically also patch it, which is like something cool. And you can take this pretty much for for all most of cases here, as you can see, I have patch tier tag, so it's going to be the same case. To actually patch certifications, I'm just going to go here, trigger it, put the service name, the certification value, whether it's going to be bronze, gold, or silver. I'm just going to trigger it, and everything is going to be patched in like few seconds. That was pretty much about the Airflow here. Let's move on to our second, uh, I would say, subject, which is actually the MCP server. That was actually a game-changing tool that was implemented by OpenMetadata in like the V180, which was like 2 months ago, if I'm not mistaken. And the MCP stands for Model Context Protocol, which is going to allow us simply to communicates between an LLM, whether it's OpenAI or Vertex, Gemini, Claude, or any LLM we do have in the market to communicate directly with our application. So right now, what we can do with the MCP of Open Metadata is actually we have the ability to search the data and intersect it directly by just putting a prompt. We can create lineage, patch descriptions, and I would say create glossary terms and many more cool stuff. But the thing is, what if we have other MCPs in our ecosystem? For example, here, let's take Grafana. So I have like the Open Metadata MCP and the Open Metadata Grafana implemented. Just to tell you here, now for the MCP Open Metadata, we can use whether the Cloud Desktop or the Goose Desktop. Goose Desktop is, I would say, a framework that contains all of the LLMs that like available in the market. So when I go here, for example, I have some extensions, and you can see this one is the Open Metadata MCP, and the second one is the MCP Grafana. And let's take a scenario where, let's say, now the good part is we have all of our metadata or like data actually shipped to Open Metadata. The good part is what we can do. Let's take scenario is we're going to take a specific table, extract from it columns, and instead of going to Grafana and create the dashboard, the queries, etc., we can just ask here Goose by just putting a prompt to say, okay, um, go search for me this table by specifying, for example, here the FQN, which is the fully qualified name. In Open Metadata via API, we can like work whether with ID or the fully qualified name, which is going to be often the service name, the database service, the schema, and the table. So what I can say to him is easily go search me this table, extract this, for example, I would say columns, and create me like a query that's gonna do, for example, this result. For my case here, it's a simple query that's gonna actually count me the numbers of data assets I have between like a range time. And once you do this, go create me the dashboard in Grafana, create me also the graph, the SQL query, the description, and many other stuffs. So as you can see here in the chat, I'm gonna just go here up. The prompt, what I said is use Open Metadata plus Grafana MCPs to create me a dashboard. Here it just said ensure the graph renders and display the exact SQL used just to make sure that everything will work perfectly. And then I'm just going to give him the fully qualified name of a specific table I do have in Open Metadata. The second part is to tell him like which columns I need to directly like do the query. And then for Grafana, we will need few information such as the data source of where it's going to find exactly the database that will extract the table from when we're going to do the match. And here, for example, creates a dashboard name, which is going to be called Asset Volume Monthly Trend with here, as you can see, the range time for my query SQL, it's going to be between 20 April and 20 August. And first of all, here, he's just replied to me saying that there is another extension enabled, so just disable it. And once I replied saying it's disabled, here he did give me the plan saying resolve the table open metadata. So he will use this function to extract me or fetch me the table, then determine the columns. After that, he's going to create directly the dashboard. He's going to construct directly the SQL query, etc. And here, as you can see, here he did like have all the information that actually he needs. Once it's done, I just told him, okay, since you have all the information, now go create me the dashboard. And as you can see, he did start all of the workflow, all like to create it. And here, as you can see, it's mentioning, okay, the dashboard has been created with, all of the informations. And the good part is when I will come back to my Grafana and I go to dashboards, I will automatically find my dashboard, which was like created by the MCP Grafana. And when I click on this, I will go here example, see my results, my graph, which is going to be ready directly to analytics with the SQL query. He did like, I would say he knew about the data source here. I have the title, the description also, etc. And the good part also is since this dashboard it's already exists in Grafana, tomorrow or like when we're gonna run our metadata agent for this specific I would say connector. In my case now I'm using the 188, but the good part is in the 191 we have already Grafana available as a connector. So if I will search here asset, yeah, you can see. Let me just go back here. You can see that already the dash was already shipped to OpenMetadata. And the good part is when I'm gonna go back to use my Airflow, I would say governance automation, I can directly patch the certifications, add descriptions, etc. I can show you also what we can do also with the MCP Grafana. So if I will go here, I just told him, okay, do me a comparison between a dashboard that exists in OpenMetadata and Grafana. If you're going to find a match between these two, you just create me a description or patch me description where you're going to say the dashboard is going to be accessed via the URL of our Grafana with the ID of this actual dashboard. And if I will click on it, it will show me directly like the graph. So and you actually like there is a lot of functions that you can use. This is just a simple actually example just to show you the power when you will combine the MCP with open metadata with other MCPs. And finally here, let me just, oh, there's a mistake. Um, Finally, the future plans with open metadata for us, it's going to be the deeper MCP integration. I know that now there is a lot of connectors or a lot of companies that they are shipping directly MCP with their tools, such as BigQuery or Airflow or Elasticsearch, etc. So if at a certain moment, like you have, I would say 10 connectors in open metadata and you have like 10 MCPs with them, you're gonna have a full ecosystem ready like for anything, I would say. Second of all is gonna be the data contracts, but I'm gonna leave Harsha and Nicole to talk about this more and more. Third of all is going to be end-to-end governance automation, by also like try to make the DAGs more efficient and more scalable. And finally, expanding the connectors ecosystem, even if it's mainly hard to find or to work with connectors that they don't really exist in open metadata. But in the case we have like tools that they are not already shipped, well, it's going to be a pleasure for us to just build these tools, talk to open metadata, and we will get them like chips in one of the next, I would say, releases of open metadata. So that was pretty much the case. That was pretty much the presentation. I hope you really enjoyed it. If you have any questions, don't hesitate. And for that, I'm gonna just say thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you for that presentation. It was great to see, one you sharing more about NW's mission, and it's great to see that you're a part of that and really being able to organize that data at scale through Airflow. And then also really appreciate you sharing that demo with MCP, right? Not only does that, as you mentioned, open up some possibilities with Grafana now being shipped as a connector in Open Metadata 1.9. But I think it was easy for me to see to your last slide, it's not just an MCP server now for Open Metadata and an MCP server for Grafana, but there are many and new ones popping up all the time, right? Where Open Metadata has these native connectors. Now they're having native MCP servers too. So it was really interesting to see how you've been able to shape both of them. I think that that's going to, start to become more the norm of being able to combine MCP servers. So the way that you are able to pull information from one service with MCP, push information to another. It's just really great to see. And you can really see that utility that you're gaining from it, right? And things that would maybe be involve a lot of scripting, a lot of prompting, or a lot of digging through the UPI or API logs, really just having the models take care of that was excellent to see. So thanks for that community spotlight. If you have any questions about the community spotlight, please let us know. But we're going to get into some more of the exciting features that we have available for Open Metadata 1.9. So to showcase some of the things that we're doing in data contracts that will be available, I'm going to have Pere come on and talk about data contracts. So thank you, Pere.
Awesome. Thank you, folks. Thanks for the time. Thank you for joining. An awesome presentation, Aimen. It's always great to see all of these implementations. So let's jump now into the data contracts world. But before that, let's try to lay a bit the foundations. And there's a scary truth that is that actually your data platform is complex, right? So if we take a look into kind of this simple toy example, I'm sure that most of you are going to have more complicated things than that. But it's very easy in a smaller environment already to start saying, okay, my first step is going to be pulling some metadata, in this case, some data from certain APIs that will go through streaming pipelines and processes via Kafka. I'm going to lay those data in an S3 bucket. Then I'm going to start creating external tables into my warehouse. I will keep playing with those tables, creating the DIMs, the facts, whatever it is that we need in order to start curating these data models so that they can then jump into, in this case, Power BI, the dashboard data models that other business analysts and whatnot would be creating directly onto the visualization tools up until this is really capable of pulling out on the screen certain KPIs on how the business is going. So as you can see, there's a lot of steps in there, even in this simple example, and there's many different teams that are involved here. So we would be starting with whatever the backend team is preparing via the APIs and the events and the topics. Then the data team comes into play. Okay, how do we normalize and organize all of this data in the right way so that the business people and the ops people can come and jump and do their work with this mentality about how is this our business behaving, how can we make sure that we pull the threads into picking up the right metrics and sharing the right insights to make sure that we close the loop, get back to the backend team and add the right decisions there. So through all of this process, there's assumptions, right? There's many things that while this data is moving, at some point we need to say, okay, I'm going to assume that this data is going to be here every day, or that this column is going to exist, or that 2 years from now, I'm also still going to be able to use a certain table or to follow up with a certain computation of my KPIs. And here is where things start to get tricky, because we might end up with some horror stories. And here I just have kind of a few examples, at least the ones that I've lived in the past, but I'm sure that most of them are also going to be resonating with you when you wake up in the morning, you are part of the data platform team, and then your pipelines start to fail. You go to Slack, you go to Teams and say, hey, why did we remove this column? Because now all of my downstream dependencies are starting to fail. And we might end up hearing some of these responses, the typical, oh, why were you using this? Because actually this column was only for internal computations. If you want to compute whatever metric, hey, instead you should be using another thing. Or people directly saying, hey, actually it was deprecated instead of customer ID. Now it's called ID customer because we are normalizing some names. Or, I actually thought no one was using it. I was checking the code and I did not find any reference to it. So basically, you need to eat the situation. You have to update all of your downstream pipelines, all of the models. If you are lucky, it's just going to be a replace all in the IDE. But in a more complex scenario, you might need to actually figure another way to get the same data in or to patch the computations that you were doing. Another scenario would be you were relying on certain columns to compute some metrics, to compute some KPIs, and then you wake up, you're a business analyst, you start to look at your dashboard, and there's plummeting numbers. Maybe you're computing revenue and you're trying to figure out what is going on this week, that we are actually selling 50% less than last week. You start crunching the numbers and see that some values in one of the columns that you're using are actually missing. They are empty. So you say, hey, should this be not null? I was actually using that. And I'm not proud of this, but one of the answers that I typically gave is, hey, just talk to bucket. I'm moving the data here. If you want to understand what's going on, please go figure out what happened in the source system. Or you might get also an answer from the business people saying, hey, actually the logic of the application changed. So you might have empty records here if specific case comes into play, or just a process that we are deprecating. But in the end, the result is going to be similar as the first story. Your dashboards are going to be wonky. Your KPIs are not going to match. You need to just sit down, clear your agenda, pick up the phone and start talking to business to figure out what are the next steps going to be. But this is not only about metadata or about the data itself. It's also about having a bit of trust into who is going to take care of the origins of your data, right? If you are working with a super important dashboard and actually your information source starts behaving a bit weird, you need to be able to raise the hand and say, hey, I see that there has been some issues with the pipeline that's feeding the table that's been failing for a full week. Who's going to be taking care of that? And you might get answers such as, oh, this team is now actually part of another team, or the person that was taking care of that process left the company, so now we don't really know how to work with that. Or maybe in the future we get, oh, now this team is actually AI, so you need to ask someone else. But the result is, again, the same. You have a critical data product that is built on top of something that no one owns. So congratulations, now you inherited a new pipeline that you need to support, you need to pull the thread, you need to figure out how this works in order to really make sure that you can keep delivering the insights and the results that you have to deliver. And in these complex scenarios, and not complex only about the data itself, but about the internal processes, the different teams, the different user personas that are daily interacting with data in the organization, that's why we need data contracts, which basically are a way to keep the data consumers and the data producers properly aligned. It's about making sure that people sit down together in the same room or via Zoom, and then they formalize an agreement about, okay, I want to understand how you need to use that piece of data, and then we are going to reach an agreement. We're going to put down a list of bullet points on how this piece of data that you're going to use should behave so that your use case can be safe in time. Now, what we've seen like being used in the market and being used by other companies is that, first of all, contracts are not always enforced, or they are not always validated. It's like, okay, we sat down last year with the people from business, with the people from backend, and then we created a Confluence page. That's great, but Confluence page is not going to go and make sure that the rules that you put in the game are actually going to be enforced. So this is actually the same as having a door with a lock painted into it. It gives you a sense of security, but anyone can go and can open it. So the same would happen with data contracts that are really not enforceable. You are putting all the work, you are laying all of the foundations, but you actually have no assurances whatsoever that this contract is going to be valid through time. And the other case that we have been also by taking a look at other platforms and how other organizations are actually implementing data contracts is that they tend to end up being too technical in nature. So people go, they prepare some YAMLs, they push the YAML somewhere, and okay, that's our data contract. But as we were saying, there's not only the complexity of data, there's also the complexity of people that are actually working and playing with the data. And within this context, we're going to have technical users, data engineers, software engineers, data scientists. Perfect. They love YAML. We love YAML. We go, we play with the APIs, we play with CLIs, we play with whatever it is that we need to play in order to make sure that these data contracts are living and hosted somewhere. But what happens with the rest of non-technical people that also are using this data, that also should be part of this collaboration, that should be part of this conversation, so that in the end we can say, yeah, we built a beautiful data asset together because it's following all of these rules. It's making sure that we can check the boxes of all of these use cases. So in the end, data is collaboration, and we need to find a way to actually break these barriers, right? We don't want data contracts to be hidden behind their technical nature. We want to make sure that we are hosting this collaborative environment where anyone can copy, can chip in, and in the end, we reach into some place where we all have peace of mind that we are not going to jump into the horror stories that we were seeing before. And this is where our implementation of data contracts come in. So the first foundational idea is that data contracts are following the same fundamentals as any other entity that we have in OpenMetadata. So in the last release, we already put out the specification and the APIs for the data contract, which is great because we are not here to force any kind of, let's say, interaction or any kind of user experience to anyone. You are a technical person, perfect. You can dump the YAML, you can push it, you can play with the API, you can create absolutely anything that you need with this automation nature that it's the foundation of OpenMetadata. And that's actually what Aimen was showing to us before on how he was able to bridge all of this gap around the scripting, around the scheduling, all of this process through Airflow. So this is something that you are also going to be able to do with the data contracts. But again, we want to empower users. We want to democratize this alignment. We want to make sure that people can work together, that they can collaborate into really creating these data contracts that are going to properly solve the different use cases across the organization, across the different users' personas. So in order to make this happen, we are providing a full UI support so that we can get verifications and validations on the schemas, right? This story about, oh, my column disappeared. We can also add these checks on the data quality of the data, but oh, this column should not be null, these values should be unique. So that's also part of the data contract. And finally, about these semantics of the data, about these kind of checks on the metadata itself, about, hey, team, we need to make sure that the data that we are using is properly owned by someone. I really need to have this assurance that there's going to be anyone in any other part in the organization that it's going to make sure that the assets that we're using are going to be behaving properly. Because if we are going to be playing with an asset that is not owned, that really opens a danger zone for us. And what is also interesting in this case is that, you know that we have actually in OpenMetadata our in-house built profiling and data quality support. And this data quality support has been there for years already. So in this case, our implementation of data contracts do not force you to go ahead, jump into other tools and basically prepare the ingredients somewhere else. You can just follow the natural flow of the UI, start adding the data quality tests that you need directly from there, and start enforcing how these assets should behave. And the second part, which we were talking about the enforcement, right? So we really need to make sure that these data contracts are validated. We really need to make sure that we have this piece of heart when we start creating this alignment and these agreements with the rest of the people. So it's not only about having these contract validations scheduled, which there's an application already out that it's going to be taking care of that. It's also bridging this gap again into the observability world with a built-in alerting system so that you can just take a look at your Slack, at your email, at Teams in the morning and figure out if something changed in your data contracts, if you need to jump and open a conversation with someone else, because that might mean trouble in the data products that you are creating on top. So that being said, let's take a look at how, there we go. and how this flow is going to look from the UI. So I have here my orders table, and as you can see, I have on the navigation bar there my contract tab. So I'm going to click in there and I'm going to start creating some data contracts. The first thing that this is going to ask me is, let's give a title. So orders data contract. I'm going to put customer team as the owner of this contract. We had a nice alignment here. We can put better description. Now I'm going to jump into the schema, and here I'm actually going to see all of the columns that are already available in my table, which means that, hey, maybe some of them can change. Maybe some of these columns, they are for internal use. That's the first excuse that we got when we were talking about the column disappearing horror story, because maybe the people that are preparing, the teams that are giving me this asset, they can assure me that, okay, the order ID, the order date, and the status are going to be there, but the rest of the columns, maybe they change because of XYZ. That's completely fine. Data evolves, processes evolve, organizations evolve. That's great. We just need to be able to have certain guardrails. We need to be able to plan around that data evolution so that we are not going to have unwanted surprises in the future. So in this case, it's fine. We're just going to flag these 4 columns on. Those are always going to be there for us. The next check that we can add here is in terms of this semantics. This is what we were talking about. Hey, it's not only about validating the data, it's also about up to some sorts validating the metadata itself. So I can come and I can say owners is set. This is going to be the rule that I'm creating here, because without ownership, we are in danger zone. And I have rules that I can apply in the owners, in the description, tags, in a few different places of our assets, which we will keep expanding as well. But for now, let's keep it simple. I'm going to say that owners needs to be set. I'm going to save that rule. If I wanted, I could keep adding more rules until I'm happy with it. Maybe I also want to validate that the domain is there or that the description is full, some things like that. And finally, I can also come here and start adding data quality tests as part of this data contract. As you can see, those data quality tests were already there. Someone already came, creating certain quality tests, started putting some validations of the data, and then the same discussion about the schema can be applied into the quality side. Maybe there's some validations that are quote-unquote good to have, but that they are really not going to break my contract in case that something changes. So I can go ahead, I can start selecting few of these data quality tests, but also what I can do is directly from the UI start adding new tests here, and this bridges beautifully with this new UX that the OpenMetadata team prepared here for making it even easier, smoothing a bit more how we are creating the test cases. So now I can come here. I'm actually going to force a test to fail. So I'm just going to say that this table should have a gazillion columns. Oops, let me move that out. And now I'm also going to select here my row count. And with that, I'm going to save my data contract. And as you can see, I have it here with, let's say, a summary of what it is that we added, with the descriptions, with the schemas, with the tests that were already passing, which is great. I already have some part of the work done, but since I just created it, I want to go ahead and run it. I really want to validate the pieces that I added here into my contract. And as you can see, this already failed. The moment that I'm running this is running some checks internally in the backend about the shape of the table, basically the schema that we have, as well as the semantics of the table. So this is already failing because it's saying that 1 failed out of 1 semantic checks because the owners are actually not set. If I want to come and I want to fix this out, I'm going to come here at customer team. Now I can run this again. I'm going to refresh, and perfect. Now the semantics are working properly. Now, as you can see, the contract is still not finished. The validation is still running because, if you remember, we were adding this data quality test from here. So the data quality test execution is going to be powered by the existing data quality test modules. So this might take a couple of extra minutes to run because it needs to pick up the test suite, it needs to start executing all of these queries against the asset. But in order for us to not have to wait here, I have this other table where I already forced some of these data quality tests to fail, and I can see here that, okay, there's some tests that are passing, but actually the customer rows is not behaving as it should. So as you can see, a super comfortable way directly from the UI with this end-to-end flow where we can check the schema of our table, the data quality of our table, as well as this more metadata and business semantics of what we expect to see, in this case, in the customers or in the orders table. This would be what we have built up until now. So the next steps that we are going to be closing in the next release is that we're going to add this UI support for other asset types. Now you can find the data contracts for tables, and we are going to keep expanding these validations for other assets as well. We want to also give you the chance to add your own custom properties for these data contracts because we understand that different organizations have their own specific needs. And finally, we are going to be adding different tabs in there about other pieces of information that we believe that are important for them to be first level citizens for a data contract, which are the security, the SLAs, and the terms of use of our data.
Let's take a little brief moment to address some of the questions that are coming through the community. So is this feature available in OpenMetadata and Collate? It is available in both, that is open source as well as Collate. The first version is pretty much the same in both the iterations. We want to make sure, again, from a very beginning, OpenMetadata is set to build out metadata standards, and we want to make the data contracts as the standard that is applicable to everyone, right? So now you have all the data in OpenMetadata. Now you have all the personas in OpenMetadata. You can build the contracts together. If your favorite is YAML, you can use YAML. If your favorite is using the UI, use the UI. And the best thing out of all of these things is the data contract is living contract. It's not just written in and stored somewhere. It's actually being functioning. It's checking while you're changing it. Is the data quality test that you added as part of the contract is live or not? Is the semantic rules are live or not? And more importantly, from the standard perspective, I posted a GitHub issue. We shared that in our Slack channel as well. We will be building a data contract page in the docs to clear out any of these questions. But our specifications, in my opinion, is much more wider, covers a lot more. That's because OpenMetadata has all the ingredients, which is from metadata checks to data quality checks to semantic understanding. You have approval workflows right within the open source version. That gave us the opportunity to build a data contract that can bring your technical and non-technical personas come together and build this data contract together, and that actually living and functioning tests. So that's data contracts. Better if you want to continue on to the next ones.
Awesome, thanks. I'm going to be quick on this part, Harsha, to not steal too much of your time. So the second big piece that we built here on the 1.9 release are the data asset rules. So when we started building in OpenMetadata all of the features around domains and data products, we did it with a vision of supporting data mesh, which is basically this process or this thought around, okay, how can we organize the different data consumers and data producers into the organization in a way that they can independently build pieces of data that can be shared and used across the organization in a transparent and documented and independent way. Now, what we've seen, however, when getting in touch with more both open source users as well as Collate customers is that organizations, they want more flexibility. There's people that they bought in the different concepts about, oh, we love how domains help us organize our data, how data products help us really highlight which pieces are safe to be used, but they don't really want all of the strict definitions that come together with a data mesh approach. So maybe people want to say, hey, actually an asset or a glossary term can be part of multiple domains. Or maybe I want to make sure that I'm only allowing a data asset to be part of a single data product instead of multiple data products. So after all of these conversations, our goal is to figure out, as this standard metadata management platform for all of the organization out there, is okay, how can we actually bring these needs of flexibility that the organizations need in terms of these governance rules and these governance guardrails. And in order to achieve that, we have these in preferences and data asset rules. We are bringing out, at least for now, these 4 built-in rules so that we can be more flexible around what a user can expect out of their metadata. So instead of having some strict validations into the backend, now these are actually going to have this extra flexibility layer where you can actually enable or disable some of these rules depending on what it is that makes the most sense for your organization. And what is important here is that these rules are directly baked into the APIs. So this is a bit different from the data contracts, because as you saw in the data contracts, I can create something that breaks the contract, and that's great. Okay, I'll get the alert, we'll figure it out. But if you're actually enabling some of these rules, I'm not going to be able to make some changes into my data that actually go and break the rules. So in this case, as you can see, for example, one of the rules here is that multiple domains by default, they are not allowed. So if I come into my orders table, I can add one domain, perfect, that works. And if I come and if I try to add 2 domains, this is actually breaking the rule, validation failed, the entity is not satisfying the rule. If I'm actually interested in my orders table to be able to have multiple domains, or not only the orders table, but any entity in OpenMetadata, I can disable the rule, go back into my table, and now I can come and I can make these changes. So this is a really, really, really powerful feature that it's baked into the very foundation of the backend, into the APIs themselves. So feel free to take it for a spin. Let us know what are your thoughts. If there's any other rule, other validations that you think that makes sense also to add into the platform, please do get in touch with us so that we can keep releasing bit by bit all of these pieces to make sure that in your organization you can follow the steps that make sense for you. And with that being said, thank you, folks, and I'm going to pass the baton to Harsha.
All right, I think we have a lot of questions waiting to answer on the chat. I think I'll just show one thing. I'm sure everyone love data contracts. We'll either keep the discussions on that, but we have a lot of things coming in. Just a second, let me share my screen. All right, if you want to learn more about data contracts, we have all the JSON schema and the discussions here. We can continue to have conversations here. If you think we need to add more about our specifications, what you see in your productions, what you see in the specification that we are lacking, we'd love to get feedback, right? We want this data contracts to work for you. And I'm hoping you guys take this, run it in production, give us feedback, and hopefully next month or so, you can come and talk to us in the community meetup about how you implemented data contracts using OpenMetadata. That will be awesome. Now, just quickly switching back to what we are shipping outside of data contracts and all the amazing things in 1.9 is the landing page improvements. So if you have 1.8 or any versions of OpenMetadata, you're probably familiar with this landing page. This landing page is very close to me. I see the activity feed probably be added in 0.4 of the OpenMetadata. allow activity feed. I see all the activity that is happening with my colleagues, with the bars, with the automations in the feed right here. And I can actually participate why we created this particular list tables, why we added a tier to tag, and all of these things. We used to bring different personas in our organizations to understand what's happening to their data. However, OpenMetadata has been used by technical folks, non-technical teams. We got the feedback that, hey, although activity feed is useful, but it's not what we want to see. For example, I want to create OpenMetadata and share it with my business users. They come in, they don't know what to look for. They can go to Explore, but they don't know what dashboards are, what tables that they have, what they need to worry about when they log into OpenMetadata. So we took that feedback and built a brand new landing page. This is what you see from what we have, 1.8 to 1.9. This is like a 1.5 month of work that we shipped this amazing feature. Now, when I land here, not only you get a brand new look, you see popular dashboards, popular tables, you see the My Data, and you see, a lot of updated look and feel for this. The activity feed is kind of tucked in right here. Makes me a bit sad, but we want to kind of help it. It's not about me, it's about all the data users. And how do we come about this? How do I create popular dashboards, popular tables, and all of these things? So if you go to the settings, we have personas. If you're new to OpenMetadata, we allow customizations to end-to-end of the product through our personas. So in this, I'll go to the default persona. I have a home page. Again, you see the home page that we seen earlier. We have all these widgets. You can go and add a widget. In here, we have almost 12 widgets that is available for you to customize based on the persona, right? So for a business persona, I want to curate an asset as an admin, as a governance person. I'm going to add this, and you see at the bottom, curated assets. So if I click create, it allows me to add a widget title. So I can say that first, maybe data assets. And you can actually see what are the asset type that you want to kind of look into. So maybe I want to look at dashboards, and I want to add a condition. We have almost 1,400 data assets, dashboards. I don't want to kind of people to overwhelm to see all of these things. I want to add a condition based on, for example, if it is matches certain tag. If it matches certain tab, and let me see something that I can find. We have 3 assets, right? So I can curate these assets of different widgets and help my team members who are new to OpenMetadata, who may not be familiar with what are all the data that they have. I don't want to overwhelm when they log into this page. I can curate this. I can reorganize this to maybe the top level widget that I need to have. So when they come in, they get to see what are the popular data dashboards, popular tables, any asset that they have, any first data assets that I want to curate and give it to them. And along with that, we have a lot of other widgets that we curated here for you. For example, pipeline status. If I'm a data engineer, when I log in, I would like to know what are my pipelines are doing, how are they doing it, are they passing, are they failing? Similarly, I have data quality. I'm interested in data quality of my organizations, my team, or whatnot. I want to land in, I want to understand. So make this as my homepage for everything that is related to data in my organizations. So amazing feature. We are super excited. We would love to see, what default persona that you want to create, how you are creating, what are the widgets that you would like to see here. We will be sending out a survey around this soon. So once you play around with it, we would love to get feedback and see like, hey, this worked, this is what helped my business users. This is what helped my data analysts. We'd love to learn about that. So I think I'll stop there. I would like to kind of hear more about data contracts, given that is getting a lot of questions. We would like to answer any questions you may have. So let's go to that panel.
Yeah, so one question here is, I'm wondering if data contracts can include actual legal contract information, how it can be used and whatnot. So this is part of the next releases that we are going to be making about adding the SLAs, basically the freshness of the data, any kind of security information that needs to be raised, as well as kind of terms of use of that specific piece of data. Then what behavior does or can be configured in OpenMetadata when any rule of a contract is broken or failure. So the same way that you can create alerts when there's a data quality test that it's failing, we also have the alerts when data contract is failing. So from the observability tab, you can create that and receive a message in Slack, send emails to the owners, whatever destination channel makes sense for you. Then what does the export object look like in the contract UI? So we are also, let's say, quote unquote, rendering the data contract as a YAML. So you can download it. You can also make changes into the YAML directly and push the changes via the YAML itself through the API. So since that's also widely adopted already, we're also following that process as well. You can go and figure out all of these nuances, as Harsha was saying, by taking a look at the spec and at the APIs so that you can let us know.
We would like to know, like, what does it help for export, right? The idea behind import and export is if you have an existing data contract, you want to import, and maybe, there are teams who wants to write data contracts in YAML, put it in GitHub, but they want a way to kind of visualize that in the UI as well. So that is where we are looking for import and export mechanism. You may create the data contract, but hey, I want to shift left and I want to store my YAML in a Git, export it, store it, but the connections and everything is working through OpenMetadata itself.
Then here maybe one last question. So are these type of contracts valid for a data mesh architecture? I assume that everyone that is using the data has to be under the same open metadata instance, right? So yes, that would be the goal, right? Even if you are in a data mesh architecture, you might want to have a central place for people to basically discover and understand absolutely everything that's happening on your organization. You might have 10 different domains with 30 data products, with all of their checks in schema and data quality and semantics and whatnot. So putting all of that information in a central place is a great way for you to actually enable the rest of the organization to come and figure it out.
Yeah, so data mesh is by default is supported in OpenMetadata. You connect to all of your different platforms. You can create domains. Domain can have subdomains. Domain can have owners. Domain can have data products as well. And you can restrict the access to each domain based on your organization requirements. For example, you may want to keep domains open. You may want to, user belonging to a domain should only have the data that within that domain. You can restrict all of those things through the OpenMetadata right now. With data contracts is another additional feature on top of that, right? If you're adapting that particular architecture, you still want people to come together and discover the data, as Pere was saying, but also have a way to work within the domain. All of those foundational pieces are already supported in OpenMetadata.
Thank you guys. Thanks for fielding those questions and all of the new updates on OpenMetadata 1.9. As Harsha was mentioning, you can find the specification for data contracts and a lot more at our GitHub repository, and feel free to give us a star there. There was a lot of questions, a lot of feedback, a lot of really positive feedback. So thanks for sharing during this meetup. But there was a lot that we covered today. If you have any questions, either as you're watching a recording or as you any questions that we didn't get to, please feel free to join our Slack. I will put this in our chat. As I mentioned, there's more people in our Slack than ever, just past 10,000 members there. It's more active than ever. And so, why are we doing things like completely changing the UI and the landing page for OpenMetadata? Because of the feedback that we're getting from you all there to make this the best and easiest to use and most valuable tool possible. So that's really been a great area of feedback there, and would love to hear what you thought about this meetup, what you think about data contracts at MCP server. Again, all of this stuff is very new. So as you're getting your hands on it and need any support or have any feedback or questions, that's a great avenue to share. But with that, thank you all for attending. Hope to see you at another meetup really soon. Hope to see you on Slack very soon. But thank you, Aimen, for presenting. Thank you, Pierre and Pere and Harsha. Always great to hear what's new about open metadata. And thanks again for everyone that attended.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.